All right, everyone, welcome back to the Idaho Business Podcast. We are here with Austin Anderson. This guy is a great dude. I've met him a couple of weeks ago at a mutual friend's party, and we just hit it off talking about business and flying and all other good stuff. So Austin agreed to be on the show. This guy grew up in Kentucky. He got his higher education at the Western Kentucky University. He's been in the drilling, oil, mostly oil, right, for drilling.
Yep. Well, oil and natural gas, both. Yeah.
Oil and natural gas since 2006 until last year, and then after that, he has recently started Anderson Epoxy Concepts here in Pocatello, servicing Southeast Idaho right now.
Yeah, basically, we've gone as far as Ogden, but try to stay or Pocatello, Blackfoot, Idaho Falls, Rigby, Rexburg, kind of the surrounding area, I guess, from Pocatello.
I like it. So hopefully I didn't mess up the introduction too bad, but Austin, thanks for coming on the show with us today.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. So first things first, we need to take our first sponsorship timeout. The beginning is we're sponsored by Sensations over in Pocatello and Twin Falls. These guys do a phenomenal job giving you your spray tans, your tanning bed tans, your pedicures, your massages, anything you need. So stay tuned because they're going to be offering some great deals if you go and mention the podcast here soon. But go and see them at their Pocatello location by Gold's Gym, and I believe it's by Gold's Gym in Twin Falls. And you can call them at Pocatello at 208-237-7866. So, Austin, let's get back to it. What's something, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been in the oil and natural gas industry for so long now. You're in the epoxy industry, but I know you're also have a love for flying. Tell us kind of about yourself and maybe some interesting facts.
Yeah, sure. So, I grew up in Kentucky, born and raised there. Went to school at Western Kentucky University for history and philosophy, oddly enough, but did some student teaching and kind of decided that I wanted to take a break and see what Montana was like. My family's kind of from Western Nebraska, but I have a lot of family in Montana. So I went out there in 2005 to help build houses with my uncle and ended up falling in love with Montana and kind of deciding I didn't want to go back to Kentucky. And the housing crisis then was starting to kind of rear its head and everything. And so I ended up actually on a drilling rig in Pinedale, Wyoming, with some friends of mine, and kind of fell in love with that industry and the schedule and everything. And ended up in Pocatello, Idaho. So I worked with some guys from Star Valley that were going to school here, and still good friends with those guys. But so I came to Pocatello, kind of fell in love with Pocatello, and left Montana, and loved the rock climbing aspect. The hot springs is so close, the little ski hill, just it seemed to have everything here, and including my wife, which I met in Pocatello. And so we got married here in Pocatello. She's from Pocatello. And and then 2008 hit, and we ended up actually in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 8 months after we got married. So we ended up in Pittsburgh for almost 4 years. My first daughter was born there. And then we came back to Pocatello after I got hired on with a company, an engineering firm out of Houston, K&M Technology Group, small engineering firm that specializes in extended reach drilling and horizontal drilling all over the world. And so I kind of worked internationally from that point. So I didn't really need to be in a specific location. And we came back to Pocatello to visit the year of the Charlotte fire. It actually broke out while we were here. And
good time, crazy time to come back.
Yeah, it was nuts. So we ended up buying a house, and we moved back to Pocatello in I think 2011. is when we ended up actually moving back in October, something like that. But been here since then, and absolutely loved it. Two more kids added to the mix, and Pocatello's been great, a great place to raise a family, and we've really enjoyed seeing it prosper and grow and everything. So that's kind of my backstory on how I got here. Yeah, you mentioned flying. Flying's kind of been in the family. My grandfather was a lawyer in Western Nebraska, and he flew airplanes. He had a Piper Comanche 250, which has always kind of been as a kid, my like dream sports car airplane and stuff. But I worked up in Alaska for a little while in 2013. Of course, flying up there is just a way of life for those
Sure.
guys up there. And they were like kind of inspired me to go ahead and pursue my license. So I got my private pilot's license, and then went on to become instrument rated. And then about a year, I think it's been about a year and a half now ago, I finished my commercial certificate. So flying's been great. I love it. Super passionate about that. But yeah, and then the
That's very
epoxy,
cool.
yeah, the epoxy business
Yeah,
kind of,
how'd you go from drilling to now epoxy? That's the
yeah,
question.
huge switch of gears for me. I guess for our family, but I worked internationally for about 8 years, and then as the kids get older and everything, I just decided. I was in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. I've kind of worked all over those. Singapore. I've worked in Kazakhstan, been to Russia, Alaska, kind of all over. And it was pretty much a 28 days on, 28 days off type schedule, which worked for our family, at the time. But as the kids get older, I kind of wanted to be around more. So the goal was to kind of come home and be home more often. So I took a position with XTO in the Permian Basin, which is in New Mexico and Texas. And it was kind of bad timing. I came home, everything was great, working 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off in the United States, which was better than 28 overseas. But
Mhm.
um, COVID COVID struck in 2019, and oil price had already kind of started to decline a little bit, and actually COVID was kind of the nail in the coffin here in the
Sure.
US. So we went from, energy independent, drilling in Texas and New Mexico, to COVID, and then a change in, administration, as we all know, which we're no longer energy independent now. But so those factors kind of accumulated to me being laid off in June of 2019. And
Hmm.
then I had some, I kind of dabbled in epoxy. We kind of have a artistic family, and the epoxy stuff we kind of did as art projects and stuff for years with the families, kind of fun things to do. I've always kind of been
Cool.
fascinated with it. And yeah, so I said, well, I'm laid off, so I might as well do something with my time here. And we started a business in, see, I got laid off in June. I went down to training in Florida for a week, or week and almost 2 weeks down there, uh, training to apply this stuff properly in August, and we did our first floor in September. So,
Very cool.
yes, sir.
Very cool. Well, that's awesome, man. What's your favorite part about the business right now?
Hands down, it's meeting the people here in Pocatello that I wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to meet. Before in the drilling job, I kind of, I came home, and it was just be home and be with the kids and the family and stuff, but we didn't really, have an opportunity to meet other people in the community nearly as much as I have got the opportunity to do, since we started the business. And we've met some awesome people since we've been doing this, and definitely feel a lot more connected to the community because of that. So that's probably been the biggest positive for me personally. But
I like it. So, starting out a new business, what was the learning curve like for you?
uh, for me, it was pretty steep. I've always been I grew up on a farm in Kentucky, so I've kind of, the work ethic thing has always been there for me, and from the time I was young. but putting your head down and working on something is one thing, but managing, owning, operating a business is a totally different animal. I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs, newfound respect. That it's quite the feat. You definitely are a jack of all trades. So definitely could not do it without my wife. She's been a huge help to me. So I'm kind of the operations guy. I put my head down and I know how to do
Sure.
stuff from that aspect. But the biggest thing that's kind of been uh, a new learning curve for me is the business aspect.
Sure.
Actually running and managing a business, not just doing a floor or building something.
Yeah.
It's all encompassing. So
It's a lot different from just doing your own projects, having fun with it, to being, okay, I'm going to do this for someone else now, and I've got to find a way to be profitable.
exactly,
Take a
exactly.
little bit of money home to support my family. So,
That's right. That's right. Yep.
yeah, well, I'll let you know that everyone that gets into the business for themselves, I don't care what kind of college they've had under the belt about business, it's still a steep learning curve. They're
Oh,
still,
that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yeah, in the drilling business, I operated at a pretty high level. We drilled in Abu Dhabi some of the longest wells in the world horizontally.
wow.
And the learning curve there is steep too, but it's one of those things where we can plan a well, design it, engineer it, and then you go and you execute the plan, and that's it. You're a piece of that puzzle.
Yep.
Where here you are the puzzle. You
Yep.
are designing, building, executing, managing, your problem solving, you're just doing it all, and it's a lot. So, but it's been
And when
fun. Don't get me wrong, it's been awesome. I like challenges, so I'm in the right place.
For sure. And when a piece of the puzzle doesn't fit just right, you're the one now having to make sure that it fits the way it should be fitting, instead of
Exactly.
just looking for someone else for guidance.
Yeah.
It's interesting when the buck stops with you and your staff looks at you and everything else. You're like, okay, we got to keep this train moving. So this is how we got to do it. So
100%. Yeah.
cool. So maybe have you made any major mistakes as you've started this thing? And if you've had, what are the things you've learned from those mistakes?
Yeah.
We've all made them, but I
Definitely
like to,
mistakes. I try to think of them as learning
for
lessons rather
sure.
than mistakes. But yeah, things that I would do differently, 100%. I kind of always tell my wife and the people that I work with, the thing that scares me the most is the thing that I don't know that scares me. It's
Yeah,
like you never know problems that you know about, you can kind of problem solve them. It's the things that you're not even aware that are going to present themselves that kind of, I guess, keep you up at night, for lack of a better term. But yeah, we've had our fair share of problem solving things from a technical standpoint of, okay, well, how do we solve this here in Idaho? Weather's probably been one of our biggest hurdles.
sure.
Epoxy is just one of those things that once that temperature drops below about 55 degrees, unless you have a heated space, it's difficult to make it work in a timely manner. So we've kind of seen where the limit is on that, and run up against that limit a couple times, which just means things take a little bit longer than you thought.
Sure.
So yeah, there's been a lot of things. Weather's been a big one. Running a business and managing your home life too has been like I said, it was a big change of gears for us. So just the day to day, learning when to turn it off for me,
Oh
especially
yeah.
when I go to work. In my other job, 28 days on, I'm there 24 hours a day. I'm on call, 100% focused on the job. So it's been kind of challenging for me to learn how to turn that off, because that's the way I work. That's how I'm used to working. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, that's been a challenge for us, but we're getting better at it and learning from our mistakes for sure.
Well, that's good because it took me about 5, 6 years to find somewhat of a balance of
Yeah,
life and family. I've learned that my favorite tool of my phone is airplane mode and do not disturb. And
absolutely.
that's the time that I'm like, okay, I'm all about kids right now. I'm all about this kind of stuff. And what I've come to learn with, you got staff out there operating without you there, and you're going to think to yourself, what if what if this happens? Well, that's the
Yeah,
reason you hire smart people.
sure.
But you'll be surprised on what they can figure out and how they can figure out the correct way without you being available to them.
Yeah,
So when you're always available to them, I learned the hard way that it's every little question. Hey,
sure.
I've got a hangnail. How do I remove it? Hey,
Right,
to everything from that to more serious things, but it's in a way when you help them understand it's not that serious. If you already know how to answer that, they just want your
right.
confirmation. It empowers your team so much, and it helps you have that step back life and be able to enjoy your time in the evenings with your family a little bit. And then there's times you have to do extra stuff, but finding that balance is key.
This is the end of part one of a two-part episode. Tune in next time to hear part two.
Congratulations on spending a couple of minutes getting a little bit smarter, having some fun, and supporting the Idaho business community. If you're feeling the love, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you are.